Oh, that's why, because I'm literally logged into it twice. All right, try this again.
Ouch,
Folks,
ouch.
we will eventually get this figured out. That's going to be the wrong window. Why do I have two of them? That's what I want to know.
The show is going?
Yes, it's going.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Am I here? There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Thomas says he can hear us.
Good. Okay, good. All right. So this is the old school way of doing it until I get whatever the hell. I don't know why the audio didn't take. It should have. Sorry about that, folks. But anyway, let's try this again. Part 9 of Bill struggles with technology, right? So anyway, let's get the show on the road. Better late than never. Real quick, I want to hear Patrick talk about the game that's on the shelf behind him, because he's got it set up for like us to stare at, which is amazing. And then I want to hear Chris talk about whatever the game is that he wanted to talk about, and then we'll see where we're at time-wise from there. Please and thank you. Sorry. Ugh.
The game on the shelf behind me is The Magnificent Race. I talked about it on the shuffle that dropped this week, but it doesn't work visually on the show very well. So I thought I'd show it here tonight because this is a visual medium. So it is The Magnificent Race, which is a KitchCon game where you're just moving around a board. It's a roll and move. It is nice in that a roll and move that you have two options generally when you move, where you want to go to. But the thrill of the race part is when you land on a race, you're putting marbles into this dish, which I'll show you in a second, that represent the race. And sometimes you might be able to buy advantages and get multiple marbles into this bowl, and then you're racing against the bad guy, Dastardly Dan, and all the players are racing. So I'm going to move my thing over here. So this is.
Did I hear that right? Dastardly Dan.
Dastardly Dan is the bad guy.
All right.
So remember, there's a Tony Curtis movie with. Called the Great Race, and Jack Lemmon plays the bad guy, and he's got this curly Q mustache, and he's always making these bad quotes, and it's kind of in the same era. So anyway, so like this is Dan, he's the bad guy, and then you might have a couple marbles in there if you're lucky, a couple extra marbles, and you spin it, and it's like a roulette wheel, and everything goes to the outside, and then you stop it, and there's a little divot right here. If you can't see it on camera very well. And whoever lands in the divot, their yellow landed in it, would win the race and would get 3 points. And then you would pull that out and you'd spin it again. Now, if Dan ever wins the race, everybody loses no matter what. No matter how many marbles you got in there, Dan always wins. So there's always this sort of push your luck thing. Even if you've spent the money to get 3 or 4 extra marbles in there, Dan could win and throw you off. So it's just a hilarious game. It's amazing that it is old as it is. I fell in love with it, so I bought myself a copy off of eBay. It was shipped, and I got to play my own version this weekend after playing it about 2 weeks ago. So
that's awesome,
and it's an amazing shape, and I love it. So when Alan comes home for Thanksgiving, we're going to put the Great Race in the DVD player and play the A Magnificent Race on the table.
Yeah, could it be Wacky Races as well? Wasn't that
yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're redoing that, aren't they, right now? Yeah. So this could definitely be Wacky Races. Yeah, you could reskin it in a minute and it could be Wacky Races.
Yep.
Yeah, this game is hilarious. I mean, I talked about it on the show. The other table got up and was standing behind us. It's just like being in Las Vegas. It's people standing and watching you betting, and the wheels spinning and people hurraying and just like a dice roll at the end of a game. Any other big game, it's the stand-up moments sort of things that you either love or hate in some games. But it's not that long of a game, so it's a lot of fun.
I have a question. Are there people in the world that hate those stand-up moments?
Sure. There are luck haters. There are people that hate dice. Where's Thomas? Thomas is in the chat room.
Well, okay.
Isn't he a dice hater?
But that's different than hating stand-up moments, right? Like, I mean, You can.
I don't know. There are people that absolutely hate any dice whatsoever. If a game has dice, I will never play it, they say.
No,
So,
I mean, there's an entire company that's based off of that idea, right?
yeah.
So gotcha.
Well,
okay.
but
Or no, dice hate him. He doesn't hate dice.
they
Sorry.
hate him. No. He loves Americana, and he would love this game. He posted actually a tweet about wishing he was at KitchCon with us because of all the goofy games we were playing. That and other things. So, okay, that's Thomas says he's not that bad. I was waiting for you to chime in, Thomas, because I know you like your cube pushers. I like a good cube pusher. I'm all sides of the spectrum. So,
some of it, like at BGG Con, there are a million different ribbons that you can stick to your badge or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I always grab the one that says Omni Gamer first.
Yeah,
because I'm that guy too, right? Like I'll play. We before the show started, we had a little bit of pre-show with a couple friends, and I was talking about how I like lighter games. And they're like, "No, you don't. Everything you play is super heavy." And I'm like, "I do play lighter games. I just don't gravitate towards them."
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we'll talk about that if I get a few minutes. Yeah, basically, the way Tom feels about dice is how I feel about lighter games. I'll play them. It's just not going to be the first thing that I'm like, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that. So, all right. So the Magnificent Race, how old is that game?
1975.
75. So it is older than everybody on the show that isn't.
No,
never mind. It's not older than anybody on the show. Is it? It might be older than Chris. Chris?
84.
All right. Oh God, you're such a baby. Never mind.
Yeah. He just started learning how to shave.
I heard that. All right. So considering that it is 43 years old, is it worth pursuing?
I immediately got on eBay after playing this and got myself a copy.
Okay.
And so did another guy who played it that night. But I mean, we were there at a KitchCon event. I mean, we were there to play these kinds of games. So if you're into this style of game, if you're into retro gaming, enjoy it. This is a you must play this. You must buy this game if you're into retro gaming. So if you're into this style of game, okay, I'm hearing myself now. Gaming, enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't know how. It's not me.
My YouTube. I don't have a YouTube open.
I don't know. This is just going to be the day of bad technology.
Yeah,
everything is terrible. There you go. You found it. All right. It does look very 1975.
Yeah.
Like the colors are kind of amazing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I didn't even show you the board, but
yeah. There is this. It's got that font on the money look very 1975.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lime green and purple money and.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's super. I would urge you to look this one up on BGG. Look up the Magnificent Race if you haven't already. Yeah. And just look at the art and what is going on this game, because this is like all of those super old, weird Parker Brothers games channeled into one board. It's kind of awesome.
Right. I mean, it's no Milton Bradley game, but
Yeah, well, he's the greatest designer of all time. That's the thing. So, all right. So it's a buy it from you, huh?
Yes, sorry. I got to pull that out. I think I used that in a tweet on Sue's the other day.
That's a callback from like
that is
5 years ago.
It's a way old callback.
It is a way old
Cubist fans.
Yes, only the hardcore fans will get that joke. So. All right, Chris, tell us about Pandoria.
So a little bit of setup. I've played 39 games from Essence so far.
Okay.
And I've only had 5 that I have rated I love it on the opinionated gamer scale.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring one of those in. And the 5 so far are Fuji, which is a cooperative by Wolfgang Warsch, Fast Forward Fortune, and I'm going to forget the other ones now. But one of them is Pandoria, and this is as a qualifier. I'm good friends with Jeff Allers, but this is a game that I really liked and I'm intrigued to play. I played it with Brandon, so Brandon can talk about it too. But it is a tile placement game where you are putting double-sided hexes, sort of like from Ingenious back in the day.
Okay.
Them on the board. You're placing little workers out there, and then you're trying to surround other terrain types. And if you surround them, then you get either points or the sort of like this magic ability to buy new spells, or you get the ability to buy additional things with gold. And so it's actually sort of a dressed up version of Ingenious, I think is a fair way to describe it. It's really intriguing. It's pretty streamlined despite the fact that there's a lot going on. It's really beautiful. It doesn't have a US release planned, I don't think. Iron Games tends to operate mostly over in Europe, but you can get it imported pretty easily. So I've really enjoyed it, and I think Brandon probably enjoyed it too.
It was a bit heavier than I thought. I don't think it's as elegant as maybe we give it credit for. It was heavier than I thought it was going to be, but I liked it.
It is considerably heavier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It is a game that can be played with partnerships, which I'm really intrigued by. I actually really love it when games have partnership play possible. So
yeah, that was one of the cool things. It has like 5 different modes to play it in the book for you. So you kind of pick and choose how you want to play it.
So that's one of the Essen games that I really loved. But for the most part, it's been a down year for me, and that's one of the good ones.
Cool.
Gotcha. Do you feel like you've compared it to Ingenious a couple of times, and Ingenious is the kind of game where I feel like it's an abstract, right? Like, I mean, Ingenious absolutely is. Yeah. Does this even pretend to be anything else?
It does. It pretends that there are these sort of different tribes and different landscape types that you're building. To a small extent, it comes through mostly in the card play. But I think, like most of Jeff Allers' games, and he did this one with Bernd Eisenstein, I think, like a lot of his games, it is more abstracted than thematic. So I don't think the theme here is particularly strong. You could have put a lot of different themes on this.
Yeah, you've got player powers that each person can have, and then basically each faction has different starting positions, and they could do different things that benefit them a little bit. So it kind of shapes how you're going to play based on that. So
Paul in the chat. I'm sorry.
I said there's a theme there, but it's just kind of thinly veneered.
It's based it on. Okay, got it. So photosynthesis-ish, or more theme or less than photosynthesis?
I'd say more than photosynthesis.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Because I feel like that's the last big game that people have talked about that was essentially an abstract with a theme. That was last year. I felt like it was one of the big splashes from last year, even though people on the show here didn't particularly love it.
Yeah, and Brandon, I don't think we used the asymmetric side.
No, I'm typing that to Paul. I don't think we played the basic game is what we played. So we haven't flipped the boards and done all sorts of other things. But
and there's also a family version that is, I think, it seems like it's going to be very similar to Ingenious.
Yeah, it basically strips away most everything that makes anything different.
I'm really intrigued by how much sort of development went into this, because they do seem to have branched out quite a bit with the different modes.
Yep, gotcha. Okay. On the scale, buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
I'd buy it again.
Buy it again. Nice. Okay. Wait, you said 39 games, 5 that you've played so far, or is that the total?
No, I played 39.
You played 39. Okay. Yeah. How many did you bring back?
Oh, probably 50 to 60.
56. Okay, so you're about 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, as of tonight, I have 19 unplayed games. So,
okay. Is Futuropia one of the unplayed?
It is. Yeah, so Futuropia's left, Blackout's left, and both of those have had pretty positive reviews so far. I think my favorites are probably Pandoria, Fast Forward Fortune, or Fuji so far.
Gotcha.
Brandon and I played Raycult tonight. I enjoyed Raycult, but I wouldn't say I loved it.
Okay.
And we played Quantum, and I wouldn't say I've enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say I loved it.
Gotcha. Perfect. I just finished the Extra Life Marathon Saturday into Sunday, where we played for 25 hours straight and played games. And we were all very tired and kind of stupid. So about hour 14, we stopped playing heavy games and started playing things that were a little bit less heavy. Maybe hour 15. I think we started a game of Brass at 11 p.m., which was maybe not the smartest idea we've ever had, but people really wanted to play it. And one of the games that I played was Dude. So have you heard of this game? You'll know that how this... Oh, bye, Patrick. Dude. This one wasn't my fault. A lot of tech has been my fault. That wasn't me. Dude is a game where everybody has their own deck of, I think it's 12 cards. And there are 6 types of cards. You'll have 2 cards of each of the 6 types. And all they are different spellings of the word dude. So one of them is like DOOOD. One is DUDE with just a period. One is DUDE with a question mark. One is DUDE with a period in very small font. One is a big font with like tie-dyed colors on the back of it. It's ridiculous. And when the game starts, what you do is you look at the top card from your deck, and you are only allowed to say the word dude. And you can say it however you want, but that's the only communication that's allowed in the game. And everybody is doing this simultaneously. There are no turns. And if someone else is saying the word dude in the same way that you are, or it leads you to believe they are reading the same kind of card that you are, you look at each other and you go, sweet. And you lay your cards down together. And if they are matching cards, you got to get rid of that card. If they are not matching, because you misinterpreted it, you have to take the card and put it back on the bottom of your stack and draw a new card. And you continue doing this until somebody has gotten rid of all 12 of their cards, at which point they go, chill. And that's the only other thing. So the only words you're allowed to say are dude, sweet, and chill. This is the dumbest sounding game ever. And I loved it. And I was very surprised I loved it, because as most people judge me as being a heavy gamer first and foremost, and that's not wrong. That is definitely the kind of game I gravitate towards, but I occasionally like some party games, but I tend to not like stupid party games. I tend to not like ones where you're just doing something dumb specifically for the goal of making people laugh. And that's exactly what this game is. And my Lord, it was fun. I have no idea why. It was like, I don't think I can. This is one, believe it or not, one of the harder games for me to rate on the Cubist scale, because I have no idea if I only liked it because it was late at night or if it's actually a good game, but it's way fun. So I guess I will cheat and give it a play it, because I think there's a very real chance that you're not going to like it. But it was really fun, and I'm very glad we played it during the marathon. It was the perfect game to lighten things up at a point when everybody was getting tired and morale was dropping. So if you can get a copy of it for cheap, or you can play a copy, I would absolutely recommend at least trying it. And for no other reason, and we didn't just play once, just so we're clear. We didn't play one game and we're like, well, that's a thing that happened, and then put it away. We played like 3 games in a row, and it got funnier, because you start getting better at figuring out how to say each iteration of dude in differently and getting people to figure out what the hell you're talking about. I don't know. It's no one was more surprised than me at how much fun I had. So that is dude. I don't even remember who printed it. It's a Target exclusive, right?
Isn't it North Star?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember seeing their name on it, but they absolutely could. I'll look it up. So
I'm looking up right now.
All right. So real fast, we're running a little bit late. Brandon, do you have a game you want to talk about? Because
Nah.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just don't buy more, dude. It kind of ruins it.
Oh, is more dude worse?
Yeah, it's North Star.
Brandon, I'm afraid that we played dude wrong. I don't remember the chill rule.
Wait, did my friend teach it to me weirdly?
No.
I don't remember that you could say the word chill. That's just
we just didn't do it that night.
Well, so now I feel like I haven't played it, Brandon.
Now you haven't played it properly,
Brandon. Get in
Brandon.
more, dude. We'll play it again. We could play it right here. Just everybody get your hand of cards.
Can you play with a regular deck of cards?
I don't have a copy of it, unfortunately.
I'll mail you all a deck of cards or a hand of cards. We'll play it next week.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I definitely. We were gonna try and do a live game on the channel, where we had where we would play because we did play Take It Easy as an example, which is a game that you own a copy, you can absolutely play along with anybody. But we had a lot of fun with it. I don't know. Done. Real fast, the one thing I do want to say is that thank you to everybody that donated one way or the other to the show or to the Extra Life. The Team Cubist raised over $2,000 for Children's Hospital of Wisconsin through the generosity of people watching and donating and whatever. So thank you very much for all of your generosity. We got a second gold medal to add to the collection, which will be here in a few months, which is very cool.
That's
so
almost
awesome.
as exciting as Geek of the Week pin.
It is. Geek of the Week, I think, is probably slightly more prestigious than this.
Yes.
But I wouldn't know because I will definitely never get one. So there's that. All right. So let's talk about the topic, which is disposable gaming. This means a couple of different things, I think, depending on who you ask. There are going to be some people that think of disposable gaming as things like legacy games where they can only be played once, before it's built and therefore can't be used again. And we're going to talk about that too. But I also like just the lifespan of games in general, I think is a side topic. So let's first talk about the truly disposable games. Legacy games that exit series count as disposable games, right? Because they can't be replayed. Is that correct? Okay. I've never played an exit. I've only ever played Unlock.
Yeah, you can work around like that very first one. I know we worked around tearing up exit. It can be done.
Well, okay, let's just talk about they're disposable or you just can't play them again. Like the Deckscape ones.
Yes, we can't play it again.
Yeah, Deckscape or what's the other ones? The ones with the app.
The stupid ones where you're searching for shit on a card.
Yeah. Where's Waldo games? Unlocked. I mean, they're all disposable in that you still can't play them again.
Yeah.
You can give them to somebody else, right? But they're still disposable.
Yes.
They're still play once and not played again.
Gotcha. All right. But those aren't. So to me, that's different, right? Because disposable to me is it cannot be played.
Okay. Well, then that's different. But
right. Yeah. Like that's a one-shot game is a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like a game that you can only play once because otherwise there's no challenge, because you've unlocked things. So all of the basically everything Space Cowboys has ever printed, as far as I can tell. Not really, but pretty close, right? Time Stories, every scenario from Time Stories.
But you played it 4 times. Sorry.
Okay. So, no, that's fine. So I am a big proponent of legacy games, have been since the get-go. I fell head over heels in love with Risk Legacy, even knowing how much I didn't like Risk. Loved it. My group fell apart. Bought it again. Took it to a different group. That group fell apart. Almost bought it a third time and then got somebody else to buy it. And even though it's Risk, I still had a great time with it because I thought it was fascinating. But the backlash that game got, and then all of the other games since then has, I feel like, brought out some of the weirdest sides of toxicity that exist in gaming. And I don't get it. So, devil's advocate, somebody else be the curmudgeon because I'm going to be the Pollyanna that is filled with hope and dreams here. Somebody else help me be the curmudgeon and explain why they suck, even if you don't really believe it.
Well, it was really hard at first to write on boards and rip up cards and I'm an old school game collector, right? So just the idea of destroying things or taking things apart. I will not take a crappy game and just destroy it just for the components, I got crap games sitting on my shelf that'll just sit there.
Yeah, El Grande is right up there next to the
that was one exactly that why I had that there as an example.
Right.
Because where like Daniel was talking about that somewhere, like he'll buy 10 copies of some game just because he can get it really cheap on Amazon just because he wants the bits in it. And I was like, I would never do that. It's still a game. It's a pure game to me. Right. So that was hard for me at first, but then the first 2 or 3, whatever games of Pandemic Legacy, I didn't do Risk. So Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was our first one. And it was a thrill. It was exciting to do that. And then we're beyond that now. We're hip deep into 2. And and now it's more about the story and seeing what unfolds and what happens.
Okay. Daniel is in the chat right now actually saying that.
Oh, that's funny. There he goes.
He's literally just telling the
We're
exact
just
same
talking
story.
about him.
That was awesome. All right. So I feel like you have failed at the thing that I wanted you to do, which was to tell me why these were terrible gaming
Oh,
experiences.
sorry. I did the reverse.
You did the opposite. You're on Team Bill on accident, which is wonderful. That's how it should be. But
well, I started off on on the opposite. I'm halfway between. I mean, I don't know.
So isn't this just a system that they're creating games just to try to force you to play them multiple times?
Yes.
Even if it's a crappy game?
Yes.
Just so
yeah, I feel like we're struggling through PL2.
It's all. I believe somebody called it like a Stockholm syndrome with certain ones.
Charterstone.
Yeah, Charterstone.
Seafall.
Yeah,
got this tag a lot.
So this is one of the things that bugs me about Legacy games.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I've got this game of Pandemic Legacy Season 1 up here, half played, that I'm supposed to go back to in hopes that it changes over the last half of the year.
It does.
But that's fine. Why should I muddle through the crap to get to the good stuff?
See, I don't remember having those problems though. I guess we liked PL1, so
okay.
Advocate with
so let's get a
sitting here.
Okay.
I want to get a baseline here though. Patrick, do you enjoy Pandemic?
Yes.
Okay. Brandon, do you enjoy Pandemic?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. So I think that makes a big difference, right? Like if you like Pandemic and therefore it is a game that you wouldn't mind coming back to 15 times, it isn't a chore.
I've been sitting in the other room after 3 plays that nobody has any desire to get together and ever play again. But yet we've got to play these 9 other games just so we can finish the damn thing.
But you don't. Just take it in the backyard and burn it. That's what needs to happen to that game.
This is the thing that Legacy games are planning on. They get people to play these things that have that start out slow, start out horrible, and you hope that they build to something, but 12 games later, you're just, we're done.
Okay, so wait a second. I have a lot of problems with that last sentence.
I'm sure you do.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But I respect that opinion. I want to jump to Chris for a second and say it is not a burn-worthy game.
Charterstone?
Oh, I thought you were saying PL1.
No. We switched over to Charterstone.
Oh, Charterstone. Okay, got it. I missed it.
In fact, Pandemic Legacy Season 2 is in my top 10 favorite games of all time.
Season 2 is?
Season 2 is. I liked Season 2 quite a bit more than Season 1, actually.
Wow.
But I love the discovery aspect. I thought it worked really well. It's the first game I thought the story worked really well. But yeah, I absolutely hated Charterstone. So, and I felt like I had Stockholm Syndrome. So
there you go. That's why I pulled that from there.
Okay, so but wait a second.
Games do.
Okay, but we said, so this part of the conversation came from Brandon's assertion that legacy games trap you into this sense of
you have to keep playing it.
You have to keep finishing it.
You have to do this to find the game.
But we've had now 3 games that have been talked about over the span of the last 3 weeks, 2 of which have gotten very positive opinions, 1 negative. So is it the legacy's fault or is it the game's fault? Because I'm more interested in the legacy as an abstract than I am about its implementation in specific games, right? Because some games get it right and some games don't. Charterstone arguably didn't. Seafall arguably didn't. Gloomhaven definitely did. Pandemic Legacy definitely did. We know. Well, we know.
Wait a minute. What? How many people here are playing Gloomhaven?
I am. I have a regular group.
Okay.
I traded my copy for a retail version of Dinosaur Island.
That's fine. You have good taste. But here's what I'm going to tell you though. Gloomhaven is the #1 game on BGG.
Yeah, I don't know why.
That matters. Look, we might not agree with it, but that matters. And what was one of the games that it knocked off from that spot? Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Yeah.
So my point is the world doesn't agree that Gloomhaven isn't a good game.
Yeah.
I no longer agree. I be honest with you, it took you guys know we talked about this on the show.
The world does not agree. BGG agrees.
No. you're sorry not to say you're all wrong, but a very small segment of BGG agrees. That is, Gloomhaven is the ultimate self-selection game. Like, a lot of people aren't going to buy it because of its size. A lot of people are going to buy it because of its cost. A lot of people know it's an RPG in a box. I mean, it is the ultimate self-selection game. It's the number one game on Board Game Geek for the same reason that Twilight Struggle was. People who knew that they were going to like it didn't play it and didn't rate it.
Yes.
But there are other games that all of the criteria you just gave, Chris, that never made it to number one.
That's because they don't have enough ratings. I mean, one of the biggest components of what becomes a highly rated game on BGG is the sheer number of ratings. You have to have several thousand to rise into the top 100.
So Kingdom Death Monster, you don't think got enough ratings?
No, it didn't.
Okay. Weird. All right. That's fair. So what you're saying is that the BGG ratings don't matter or don't count in this case, or shouldn't count.
They count for the segment of the population that really likes that game, but otherwise, I mean, just because a game's in the BGG top 10 doesn't ever mean it's good. Like, I don't personally like Twilight Struggle that much.
Okay, but wait a second. Hold on. Just because you don't like a game and a game isn't good, that's a false comparison, right? Not that I'm saying your tasting games is bad. I mean, it's provable that your tasting games is bad. You like El Grande, so you're already off the reservation here. But my point is that you can't say a game is bad because I don't like it. You can say I don't like it because it is bad, and that might be true, but it isn't provable. I don't like El Grande. I will not say it's a bad game because it's not a bad game. Most people like it. I just don't.
The entire hobby comes down to taste. And on matters of taste, there can't be disagreement.
I agree. And maybe I'm the one that's off the reservation here, but I guess my point is
what we can't say is what has broad mass market appeal. Pandemic Legacy has more of a mass market appeal than Gloomhaven. I think we can all agree with that.
Well, yeah, because you can actually carry it. Like, you can take it, you can pick it up and like hold it in your hands and not worry about your back.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Tom in the chat is pointing out, friends I have that are occasional gamers love legacy games. Most of my gamer friends who game all the time seem to dislike legacy games. I wonder if it's because we all crave the new hotness. That is the best segue I could have possibly asked for the second half of what I was talking about with disposable games, which is the lifespan of games and how important replay value is. This is actually the conversation that got me thinking about this topic in the first place. We talk about new games all the time on this show, right? All the time. We literally did it 4 times in the last half an hour, right? That is what media people tend to do because it's the thing that people want to learn about before they spend their money, right? I mean, that's basically how this works, isn't it? Hell, our rating system on this show is predicated on that idea.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times are you playing every game, even if you really like it?
So there's a metric that you can look at called, I think it's an age index, right?
Yeah, age index.
Yeah, so I have about 30 games I've played 30 times or more, but I've played 1,200 games, so I don't play games that many times each, even if I really like them.
Okay, so first off, where is this age index? Is this
You're talking about H is in Hillier, right?
Yeah, H is in Hillier. Yeah, so all you do is go on Board Game Geek, sort your number, everything in your collection by number of plays, and count down how many rows you get through before your number of plays is less than that row. So an H index means for me it's 30, so that means I have 30 games that I've played at least 30 times. Yep,
I'm at 20 games that I've played at least 20 times.
So, but this predicates on logging plays.
Yeah. You have to have the data, but it's a metric that tells you exactly what you're asking for.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not. Okay. I think you're drilling into too specifics based on data, and I'm thinking more in terms of the way we value games.
But no, I think of 1,200 games, I only have 30 that I've played 30 or more times. I don't play a lot of games over and over again.
Yeah.
Whereas that's what a lot of people are looking for. Like, I have friends who are happy playing Catan for the next 10 years, and that's all they'll play.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also, when we were talking about the general populace, right? People don't have hundreds of games in their basement. They have 2 or 3 games on a shelf in the closet, right? And that's normal. That's the normal.
Yeah,
right.
And Bill, to more directly answer your question, the games that I have played the most in the last 5 years have tended to be legacy games because they do draw me in to replay them to finish the campaign. Whereas, I mean, I just talked about Pandoria. There's nothing that will draw me into that to play it 10 times. I really enjoyed it, but like most games, unless there's something specifically that I'm trying to accomplish, I'm not going to play it 10 times.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. And it's not as much a question that demands an answer as it is a thought experiment in my mind, right? Like I look at my shelves, and right now I have slowed down. It's arguable how much I've slowed down because I'm me, but I have slowed down significantly on the acquisition of games. And as we've talked about ad nauseum on the show, I give games away fairly often. I don't very often sell them, but I give them away fairly often when they don't impress for whatever reason. Either if somebody likes it way more than me or whatever. Half of when I play a game, half of when I start playing, I immediately think about things like replay value. Is this game going to be different in its fifth play than it is in its first play? Different enough that the puzzle of gameplay can be solved, right? Like if I feel like every game is going to play exactly the same, I don't remain invested in the game, even if I like it. Like, here's a great example. I really liked Caverna until about game 10, when I realized that there is nothing in Caverna that prevents you from playing the exact same strategy every time you sit down at the table, except for the other players playing. Mm-hmm. So Caverna left my collection. And that is an argument, that is a pro Agricola argument. And I can see Chris. Yeah, I know who I'm talking to here. But is that really a big deal? Like, am I playing any of these games often enough that I'm really going to be like, wow, this is my 50th game and I'm still doing my mule strategy in Caverna? Was that ever really a concern, or is that an illusion that we are being fed to get us to value some games over others?
Yeah, I think replayability matters. I think what's so special about legacy games, at least for me, so I really enjoyed Ultimate Werewolf Legacy, and we've played the entire campaign twice now. And what made it really special for me is each chapter is set up as a different game. So I actually felt like I was getting 18 or 16 different games out of that. And, Pandemic Legacy changes over the course of the campaign. So I feel like I'm getting different games out of it. Whereas games that aren't these legacy type games, I don't feel like I'm getting that.
Gotcha. Okay. Brandon, where do you land here with this? I'm asking you because you're the library guy that buys tons of games and always has new
I've got way too many one and dones, right? Sitting around this house. That's what we like to call them. You play them once and you never go back to them. And that's when we were discussing this last week. This is more what I was meaning about disposable gaming.
Right.
We're making games that don't have the depth. We're making games that don't make people want to dig in. We're making so many games, we just got to keep shoveling them at us and playing them once and then move on to the next. That's what we're doing.
Okay. See, and I knew that this was going to be two different conversations, and the chat room is sort of addressing that a little bit, in that there is, we're not really talking about disposable games in terms of this game isn't playable. We touched on it briefly at the beginning of the show, but that's not really where I think the interesting part of this conversation is. Patrick, how are you on the one and done thing? Is that
I'm the same way? I've got hundreds of one and dones. Yep. I'm horrible. My H index is 5. I looked it up.
I was going to say, this is something that, it's invariably something that goes to people who collect things and who keep things, right? But still, even if I churned my collection, we're still going to keep hitting these one and dones, and I'm just going to turn around and sell them.
Well, right. Yeah. And I think that's unavoidable, right? Because you're not going to like every game.
And Lucas in the chat said he'd treat them like a novel or a movie or something like that. Well, I'm paying double the price for these, right? Than I am for a movie or a book.
If you play with your family or not.
Well, if I'm taking my family to the movie.
All right. So my new trend is a game has to have a solo option nowadays, because I'm more likely to get it played that way. That's my new thing. And I'm getting them played that way.
That's fair. That's fair. So is this intentional? Like, do we think that the industry is doing this to us on purpose? I'm not saying maliciously, but I mean, do we think that we are being, because you were talking about shoveling games at us, right? Like we're just going to keep throwing games and see what sticks, and we've made jokes on the show in a number of times about that, about how there are some companies that seems to be their entire print strategy. Mm-hmm. Yes, we'll print your game. What is it? Who cares? Put it in a box.
We'll print it, we'll promote it for 2-3 weeks, and then we'll move on to the next thing. That's what they do.
Okay.
So, here, if I can briefly counter that sort of, I don't work in the industry. I have no financial ties to the board game industry. I have to say, I think that I hear that a lot. So when Pandemic Legacy was becoming the #1 game on BGG, there was a lot of people saying, this is a game that is disposable. This is a marketing ploy by the game companies. They're trying to get us to buy multiple copies, blah, 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 blah. I actually have to say that's utter nonsense, because these games take so much more work to design and develop that it would be extremely unprofitable for the game industry to do that. I guarantee you that Pandemic Legacy will never make as much money as Pandemic, and perhaps that's a bad example, but these games take so much more time to develop and so much more cost to print that I don't think it is some like dollars and cents ploy by the board game companies.
The latest game that has gotten that I've heard people complain about was Keyforge, right? Like the idea is that every deck is completely unique and it's just a scam to get you to buy a whole bunch of decks. So you would spend a bunch of money on the game because I don't like this deck. I'm going to buy 5 more or whatever. That doesn't make, like, Keyforge is probably closer to that conspiracy theory in truth, right? Because you don't actually, like, they don't have to actually, the design work isn't as much as the randomization work, right? Like they just have an algorithm that's, pooping out weird names and putting a random graphic on the back of each card. Well, I mean, that's what it is, right? There's definitely not a human being that's naming every one of these decks, right?
Richard Garfield is still chained in his basement. Thank you very much.
He's sitting there with a pen going,
"Yep,
Bruce, the
this is killing me."
Right. It puts a name on a game.
Or it gets the hose again.
Yes.
There you go. All right. I guess what I'm trying to say is I agree with you, Chris, that I think that level of conspiracy tinfoil hat wearing nonsense is exactly that. Like,
right. Those are the same people that say they only intentionally bring 100 games to Gen Con to
well, there are
to inflate the
inflate value and inflate
Having worked with a publisher for many years back in the day, I will tell you, no publisher in their right mind is only bringing a few games to Gen Con. On purpose. I mean, sometimes it happens, we only have 100. It's all we got because the boat hasn't gotten here and we couldn't air freight more than 100. But like, here's a great example. The first BGG Con I went to, Czech Games was releasing Alchemists, had released it at Essen, but couldn't get enough of them to BGG. So they literally had the people working for Czech Games packing their personal suitcases with copies of Alchemists. So that way they would have at least some copies there for people to play. And when the doors opened on the first day of the dealer hall, that was the booth that people were running towards so they could get there, including yours truly, because I knew I was going to love that game. They definitely didn't do that to get BGG people to say, ooh, this game must be great. It ran out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 0% chance that's a thing that happened.
So,
I don't know.
Bill, I do have so as much as I am a fan, I think I've played every Legacy game. I play a lot of these disposable games. I do think there are two, if I can be the curmudgeon for a second.
Please.
I think there are two really big problems that face these things. The first is, if you're going to have a disposable game, you have to nail the initial presentation of the rules, and these games aren't doing that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you can't figure out how to play it and it's ruined after one play, then you have a major problem. The exit games have been a big problem for me in that regard. I had a couple that were so obtuse that I couldn't figure out a couple of clues. The app wasn't helping me. Those drive me crazy. The other thing is, I actually do worry a little bit about sort of the fact that, like, we're just printing all of this cardboard and plastic, and it's just like, I don't know what to do with it when I'm done. Like, I know that's like makes me sound like an insane person, but like,
No.
I have like this giant box of like random Charterstone and Pandemic bits, and I don't know what to do with them.
Where's the insert closet? Sorry.
Yeah. Like I could recycle them, but like
why wouldn't you?
Like,
why would you not?
Here's the thing. At the end of Ultimate Werewolf Legacy, I had this like really nice leather-bound binder that documented like my group's like games. And I was like, this is awesome. And even at the end of Charterstone, I have that board, and like, I will weirdly keep that board as a momentum of my Stockholm syndrome. But like I don't know what to do with these other ones, and it drives me crazy.
Okay. First off, it's not the game's fault that you're a weirdo that keeps legacy boards. All right. There's 0% chance that that's Rob Davio's fault. Like
his house in the future is just going to be decorated with shadow of all of his boards.
If I'm being really honest, like I have a slight like environmental concern, like for these but
that's where I thought you were going with it at first.
Yeah,
like we're killing the planet with legacy games.
But I'm also sitting here drinking a plastic bottle of Diet Coke, so clearly that's hypocritical. So
yeah. Well. Okay, so I want to touch on a couple comments that were made in the chat that I don't want people to feel like I'm not paying attention to them. Jason Hall a while ago said that replay value matters to a lot of people and used Agricola as an example because people have literally played it 1,000 times. That's a whole, I would say that what digital versions of games do to the way people play games is an entirely different conversation. Because this goes back to when Brett Spielwelt was the only game in town for online play, and suddenly everybody was playing Puerto Rico. It wasn't necessarily because Puerto Rico was everybody's favorite game. It was because it was a really easy game to knock out in a half an hour online, and you could get your gaming fix, right? But there were a lot of other games that people liked just as much, maybe more. So I think that's a different conversation. I don't disagree with the overall idea, but I'm saying, like, I think that there are other factors at play there. Okay, so there were people saying things like, we're not going to play Billy Kerr because it's a one and done. I think that was Chad, right? I think it was Chad. I can't find it. That's closer to what I was thinking of, right? Because that's a game that you're going to discover the content and then theoretically not have. But I don't know. I think Billy Kerr. Have you played that yet? No. Okay. That was on my short list of games I was really excited about when I started reading up on us, and I probably will buy that game because I think the theme is really interesting. But from everything I've heard about that game, the game itself is actually still pretty good. Like the actual gameplay is a light to medium co-op. That's not a bad game. It's just you also get this story, but you can replay any of those scenarios over and over again, and the game itself is still pretty good. So I think that's interesting. Paul brought up the environmental side of things. I don't think that that's unimportant, but I would argue that compared to a lot of other things in the world, I think that our hobby is barely a blip on the environmental radar.
Our cardboard is biodegradable, so
that's also a good point. Is you can at least compost your games. So there you go. There's your answer. Take up a hobby farm, Chris. Compost all of your bits that you don't want, not the plastic. Send those to Daniel Newman. He wants them.
But on my first point, I do think that it is a major problem that these companies keep having rules problems. I mean, on these legacy games, they really have to nail it, and they just aren't. So the other thing is, I would love to see board game publishers and I know this is a big ask, and probably another me being a slightly crazy person. I would love to see board game publishers, when they design and release a game, tell me how many plays they think it's really good for replayability. So Puerto Rico, I can play that game probably 100 times before I get bored of it. Okay. Azul, that's another one I can play 100 times before I get bored of it. But just looking over here at my shelf, like Aquaretto or Limes, these are 25 play games. I would love for publishers to have some way to just tell me how many plays is the average person going to play this and enjoy it. Is that a theoretically possible ask?
No. I don't think it is, because I think that's too taste dependent. I'm going to give you an example that is contained within your example. You pointed to Puerto Rico as being a game you can play 100 times before you get bored. I got bored before you finished that sentence. Azul came real close, like to that same problem. Those are not games for me. So any metric you put on the side of that box, sure, you could say, and also Bill is a crazy person. He's definitely wrong, but it's taste dependent, right? Like I absolutely
First Martians, I got bored before I finished saying that one. So,
it is very taste dependent, but I think that it is an admirable goal. Like, some publishers are designing games to only be played 5 or 10 times these days. And some publishers are designing games that, these are the Aaliyah games that they want to have high replayability over time. And some are designing them with more variation, something like a kingdom builder that adds quite a bit of replayability. So I wish that we had a rating scale for that. Like, one of the things I like about legacy games and disposable games is at least they're transparent about it. I knew going into Pandemic Legacy I was going to get at most 24 games. I knew going into Charterstone I was going to get 12 games. And so I like that about those systems, whereas I don't know that for most games that I buy. I know I'm going to get somewhere between, on average, 1 and 20. A game that I want to play more than 20 times is pretty rare.
I would just like to point out that, and I'm not saying specifically that you're contradicting yourself here, but I'm going to point out that a half an hour ago, we were referring to the Stockholm syndrome that these games put you into. And now you're saying, but at least I have a guarantee.
No, there's only been one game that put me in Stockholm syndrome. It was Charterstone. And the reason I kept playing it was so I could review it.
Okay, that's fine. But I guess what I'm saying
you're
is
welcome, world.
There you go.
That was really arrogant. But, I really, we were like 7 plays in and I was like, I can't do this anymore, but I'm going to power through 5 more plays so I can write the most negative review I've ever written.
Wow.
Nice. I guess what it comes down to is that there's too much personal taste. And you said this a little while ago, and I 100% agree. Everything about this hobby is ultimately a matter of taste and preference, and what kinds of games do you like versus what kind of games this person likes. And not every game is for everybody. I really don't like El Grande, but it is a game that a lot of people really like and have played 100 times. Puerto Rico is fine, but I don't yearn for another 100 plays of it, right? Like, I'm glad I have a copy now. Thank you, Patrick. But Lucas points out something in the chat just now that I think is really important. I do think the promise of you can play it after the Legacy done has not been fulfilled. I would argue that Risk Legacy is actually extremely playable after it's done. It's just that most gamers don't like Risk. That game, the map when you are done with it is 100% playable. Absolutely.
Yeah, for me,
You just don't like Risk.
Yeah, for Charterstone, I didn't want to play the 12th game, let alone the 13th. And the Rise of Queensdale, I actually played that with Chad Roberts. That one I think was playable afterwards, but I don't think any of us had any interest in doing it. The thing was, by the time we played the 20 or so games it took to get through our campaign, we were pretty tired of it.
Yeah. I am theoretically halfway through a Charterstone campaign that has dropped off the planet because people's schedules can't work and nobody is super enthused. Like, there's nobody in that group that is messaging going, hey, wait, when can we get back to the Charterstone table? But I do have people that are messaging going, hey, when can we get Gloomhaven to the table again? So, I don't know. I can only work off of the information that I'm given. All right. So let's really quick, because we're running a little bit long because we had all the technical problems at the beginning, and we're going to go a little bit long, folks, and I'm sorry. But no, and Lucas, I'll address this really fast before I transition away. Not technically playable, viably playable. It is a viable game after the end of that campaign. It can be played competitively and viably because they built in rules for it in Risk Legacy. You just might not like Risk, but it's still a playable game. I don't know about Pandemic Legacy because I didn't try. And I'm not through with season 2 yet, so I can't speak to that. All right, so the one last thing that I wanted to touch on is this. How do we get past the anger that people seem to be feeling about this in both directions, right? Like, how do we get past, as a hobby, being mad about disposable games? Because there's a market for them, clearly. They all do well. when they come out, right? Like Exit 1 Spiel. Gloomhaven is the #1 game on BGG, whether you think that's valid or not based on its ratings, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. It's still there. It is still a successful game. You can't argue with it being successful. I mean, I guess you could, but you'd be wrong. How do we get people to dial down the rage about it?
I mean, I have a suggestion. They could just act like adults. I mean, the fact is that you need to understand that people will like different things than you. Like, I hated Charterstone, but like if a friend came up to me and was like, hey, I just played 12 games of Charterstone and I really liked it, I'd say, well, I think you're wrong, but I'm really happy for you that you enjoyed those 12 games. And, as a hobby, we need to be happy that people are enjoying the games that they're playing. And, I'm going to be a snarky critic. That's like what I love doing. But in the end, like, if you enjoy the games, good, buy them. I'm not going to buy them, but I'm happy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This has come up a couple times recently and a whole bunch over the last year. And that's where the don't yuck my yum thing that I used to talk about on the show, and I blessedly haven't said for a long time before tonight, came up. Like, we are going to have opinions on games, and those opinions are going to differ. You just said, if somebody came up to you and said they played 12 games of Charterstone, they loved it, you would say, you are wrong, but I'm glad you had a good time. Are they wrong? Or are they? I mean, I know I'm playing with semantics a little bit here, but I do think there is an objective, like, we as reviewers can say objective things about games.
So, for example, I think Ticket to Ride is an objectively family weight game. But when you get down to good or bad, like, I will tell you I didn't like it, but that's all I can really say. I don't know that I can tell you, is Ticket to Ride a objectively good or bad game. I can tell you objective characteristics. It takes on average 45 minutes to play or things like that. But on matters of taste, there can't be disagreement.
Tom Chittister is calling you out, by the way, because you told him that he was wrong about Charterstone.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm completely free to tell you you're wrong, but I'm also going to be happy for you that you enjoyed it.
Yeah,
right. I think back to a gaming night we had where we were playing some, Altiplano or something. I don't remember what it was, but and the table next to us was it was at a game store, and there were people playing Catan, and they were having a blast playing it. And when one of the guys next to me was like, "Oh, I hate Catan. Oh, I would never play that again in my life." And we're educated, snobby game players, right? Who know better, but they don't know any better. They were having fun, and why are we?
And we don't know better. We just have different tastes.
I'm just saying. I know. That's what I'm saying.
No, I know. I know you
are. I was kind of piggybacking on what Chris said. Is our taste better, or we just know more of what's out there, or whatever? So
I wish I could go back to loving Catan that much. Like,
right.
That's an honest statement.
That was kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be that, cheerful again. So.
Yeah,
I wish I liked El Grande. I'm not being funny when I say that. I wish I did, because that game is so well respected and so well loved. And I'm in a safe space here, right? Because, it's a running gag at this point. Everybody likes to pick on me for not liking El Grande. But it also, because I am honest and I don't say, it's a fine game. It's just, I'd say I don't like it. It devalues my opinion in the eyes of other people, because they're like, well, if he doesn't like El Grande, what the hell does he know? He doesn't know anything. And I don't care, right? Because our jobs as media people, period, whatever, are to entertain as well as inform, right? Like, otherwise nobody would watch these things, right? Like, I mean, we are here, and I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about all the reviewers, right? You have to also be entertaining. You can't just sit there and dryly read the rule book to me for an hour on a video. I'm not going to watch that, right? And nobody is. So there's no point of that. It's just not. That's not a valuable trait, is to not be entertaining along the way. And so I think that you're going to say, like, you're allowed to tell people that they're wrong about Charterstone, Chris, because that's part of the entertainment of who you are. You are literally an opinionated gamer. That's the website you write for. Like, that's what you're supposed to do, right?
And me looking at you and saying that you're wrong, that's one of the nicest things I will say about Charterstone.
Yeah, I mean, How many times have I on this very show told at least one of the panelists that they have terrible taste in games? I know I've said it to Brandon like 100 times.
He does have terrible taste in games.
He refers to frickin' Azul as the Precious, which is one of the most forgettable games I've ever played. Like but you guys love it, which is great. Good for you. I'm down with that. But my point is, everybody needs to relax. This got said, and I know Kimberly is, I would like to say passive aggressive, except for it's not actually all that passive. Bitching about how long we're going in the show. We had 20 minutes of technical issues in the beginning. We'll get there. Relax. But somebody said above that nerds rage about things, and this is
anything.
Right. And that's not an incorrect statement, but I don't think it's an excuse. I think that rage, it can be misplaced and oftentimes is, and everybody just needs to chill out and let people enjoy the hobby the way they want to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, Brandon, I love that you love Azul as much as you do. I really do. I'm glad that a game came out.
Patronize me,
I'm not patronizing you. I am not patronizing you at all. I don't love that game, but I'm glad you do. Good for you, dude. That's awesome. I'm glad that Patrick gets a game of El Grande in every time he goes to what is it, Origins? Is it Origins that you have to play it at every year? Right. That's awesome.
That you have to play it every year.
No, it does, right? That's a thing. I'm not making that up. No, see? That's the thing. I didn't make that up. I love that stuff. That's part of what makes this hobby fun. I don't think that throwing our hands up and saying, well, nerds are going to be dicks is a reasonable response. I think we need to be better than that as human beings, whether we're nerds or not, right? And I guess that's where that's the part that I want to. Every game is somebody's favorite except for Charterstone. Well,
yeah, a lot of people are.
Jamie Stegmaier probably loves Charterstone.
I think Jamie Stegmaier loves his bank account from Charterstone.
Well, there's also that, and that's a whole different thing. And we're not going to jump on the Jamie hate train because I like Jamie, and I'm not going to let this go there.
He's made some great games, just not that one.
Exactly. Paul, you asked a question, and we will get to that during After Dark because we're going to switch to that now so Kimberly can stop shouting at me in all caps in the chat room. So I don't know who's going to be here for that, but you are all, of course, welcome to join us in a minute. Chris, in case you don't join us for the second half of this, where can people find out more about your stuff, including your excellently written articles about people that have been in the gaming industry for long periods of time?
So I'm posting stuff to the Opinionated Gamers. We'll have a whole week of the Voices in Board Gaming series coming up here in a couple weeks. And it should be really interesting. Brandon's one of them. And you were one of them, a really good one, by the way. And I'll be posting all of my SN reviews in the next 8 weeks. So
I am really excited for them. I'm also really excited to see you in person and play some games with you in 2 weekends. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everybody else that I love is going to be at BGG, but you guys, I love you just as much. Patrick,
hey, I'm on Twitter at Over the Hillier and can be found on the What Did You Play This Week Productions feed, doing shows like The Shuffle and What Patrick and Eric in the Morning.
Very good. Brandon.
The Shuffle just went live this morning. Today's Monday.
It is.
God, it's still Monday.
Still, for a couple more hours.
So the Shuffle went live this morning. So go find that on the What Did You Play This Week Productions feed. You can find me otherwise sitting on my butt at a gaming table somewhere.
In 11 days near me.
Yep.
I am
or
excited.
However you want to word that.
That too. All right. Thank you all for joining us. I'm really sorry for the tech glitches that caused us to have to start late. Unfortunately, no real way to get things rolling a little bit faster. Hopefully I'll have it figured out again by next week. Who knows? So anyway, hang in there. We'll start After Dark in just a few minutes. Thank you so much for those of you that won't be joining us. Have a fantastic week of gaming. We will see you all again next week. Be good.